Right now you're exhausted, not physically, mentally, spiritually, because you've been running your entire life, chasing success, chasing validation, chasing the next achievement, the next milestone, the next thing that's supposed to finally make you feel complete. And every time you catch something, the satisfaction lasts about 5 minutes before the emptiness returns, before you're chasing again. You think the problem is that you haven't caught the right thing yet. That's not the problem. The problem is the chasing itself. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire. He had everything a human could chase: absolute power, infinite wealth, historical legacy. And yet he wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." He discovered what most never will. Happiness doesn't come from acquiring what you don't have. It comes from embracing what you already do. This isn't about settling. This isn't about giving up ambition. This is about understanding that the life you're desperately trying to reach already exists, right here, right now, hidden beneath your refusal to see it. This video will destroy every illusion you've been sold about happiness. You'll learn why chasing guarantees misery, how to shift from acquisition to appreciation, and how to build a life of depth instead of breadth. Watch closely, because what you're about to learn will either liberate you or terrify you. And that's exactly how you'll know it's true. You weren't born chasing. You were conditioned into it. By parents who measured your worth in grades and achievements. By schools that taught you life is a competition with winners and losers. By a culture that convinced you happiness is always one purchase, one promotion, one relationship away. They trained you to postpone contentment, to believe that satisfaction exists somewhere in the future, just beyond reach. When I get that job, when I make that amount, when I find that person, when I achieve that goal, then I'll be happy. Then I'll be enough. Then I'll finally rest. That's the trap, because the goalpost always moves. You get the job. Now you need the promotion. You make the money. Now you need more. You find the person. Now you need them to be different. You achieve the goal. Now you need a bigger one. This isn't ambition. This is addiction. And like any addiction, it promises fulfillment while delivering emptiness. Marcus Aurelius saw this pattern in the most powerful people in Rome. Emperors who conquered nations but couldn't conquer their own dissatisfaction. Senators with unlimited wealth who still felt poor. Warriors covered in glory who still felt inadequate. He wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. The chase doesn't fail because you're catching the wrong things. It fails because chasing is the wrong orientation to life. Your transformation begins with a brutal admission. Everything you've been taught about happiness is backwards. Happiness doesn't come at the end of the chase. It comes when you stop running. Here's your first principle. Understand that desire is infinite, satisfaction is not. This is the core Stoic insight. Human desire has no natural stopping point. There's always something else to want, someone else to be, somewhere else to go. Your mind is designed to generate endless desires. That's not a flaw. That's evolution. Your ancestors who were satisfied with what they had didn't survive. The ones who always wanted more food, more safety, more resources passed on their genes. You inherited that drive. But you also inherited something they didn't have. Consciousness. The ability to observe your desires rather than be enslaved by them. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A man's worth is no greater than his ambitions." Notice he didn't say, "A man's worth is measured by his achievements." He said ambitions, because unchecked ambition is not strength, it's slavery. When you chase without awareness, you're not ambitious. You're addicted. You're running on a hedonic treadmill that goes nowhere. The solution is not to eliminate desire. It's to make desire conscious. To choose what you pursue rather than be driven by unconscious hunger. You ask yourself, is this desire coming from me or from conditioning? Am I wanting this because it aligns with my values or because society says I should? Will achieving this bring genuine fulfillment or just temporary relief from the anxiety of not having it? Most desires, when examined honestly, collapse. They're not yours. They're borrowed, inherited, implanted. And once you see that, you can let them go. Not through suppression, through recognition. The desire loses its grip the moment you realize it's not serving you. Step 2. Practice the dichotomy of control. This is Marcus Aurelius's most powerful tool. He divided everything in life into 2 categories: things you control and things you don't. You control your thoughts, your responses, your effort, your character. You don't control outcomes, other people, circumstances, or results. Most people spend their entire lives chasing things they don't control. They chase success, but success depends on markets, competition, luck. They chase love, but love depends on another person's feelings. They chase recognition, but recognition depends on other people's opinions. And because they're chasing things outside their control, they live in permanent anxiety, permanent dissatisfaction, permanent dependence on external circumstances. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." When you stop chasing what you can't control and start embracing what you can, everything changes. You stop trying to control outcomes and start controlling your effort. You stop trying to make people love you and start becoming someone worthy of love. You stop chasing recognition and start doing work that deserves to be recognized. The shift is from external validation to internal integrity. And that shift is liberation. Because suddenly, your peace doesn't depend on anything outside yourself. You're no longer at the mercy of circumstances. You're sovereign, not because you control everything, but because you only try to control what's actually yours to control. Everything else, you embrace as it is. Step 3. Shift from having to being. Here's what the chase is really about. You're trying to construct an identity through accumulation. You think if you have enough, you'll finally be enough. If you achieve enough, you'll finally become someone valuable. If you acquire enough status, respect, or wealth, you'll finally feel secure in who you are. That's backwards. Marcus Aurelius understood that identity doesn't come from what you have. It comes from how you are. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one, not have one, not appear as one. Be one." This is the shift from external to internal, from accumulation to cultivation. You stop asking, "What do I need to get?" and start asking, "Who do I need to become?" And once you make that shift, everything you've been chasing becomes irrelevant. You don't need the promotion to feel successful. You become successful by acting with excellence regardless of title. You don't need the relationship to feel loved. You become loving, and the love you give fills you. You don't need the achievement to feel worthy. You become worthy through character, discipline, and integrity. This is why Marcus Aurelius, despite being emperor, didn't derive his identity from his position. He derived it from his philosophy, from his commitment to virtue, from his daily practice of wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. The empire could be taken from him. Those qualities couldn't. You do the same. You identify what kind of person you want to be, and you become that person through daily action. Not someday, today. And once your identity is rooted in being rather than having, nothing external can shake it. Step 4. Practice negative visualization. This is the Stoic technique that seems dark, but is actually liberating. Marcus Aurelius regularly imagined losing everything he had: his empire, his family, his health, his life. Not to be morbid, to be grateful. He wrote, "Do not indulge in dreams of having what you have not, but reckon up the chief of the blessings you do possess, and then thankfully remember how you would crave for them if they were not yours." When you imagine loss, you stop taking for granted what you have. Your ordinary life becomes extraordinary. The health you ignore becomes precious. The relationships you neglect become irreplaceable. The simple fact that you're alive becomes miraculous. This practice reverses the chase. Instead of constantly looking forward to what you don't have, you look at what you do have as if you're about to lose it. And that shift changes everything. You stop chasing more and start savoring now. You practice this daily. You imagine waking up tomorrow and your loved ones are gone. How would that feel? Now open your eyes. They're here. That's not ordinary. That's a gift. You imagine losing your ability to walk, to see, to think. How would that feel? Now notice you have those abilities. That's not baseline. That's extraordinary. Most people wait until they lose something to appreciate it. You don't make that mistake. You appreciate it now by imagining its absence. And through that practice, gratitude replaces grasping, appreciation replaces acquisition, embracing replaces chasing. Step 5. Understand that contentment is a practice, not a destination. Here's the lie you've been sold. Contentment is what you'll feel when you finally have enough. That's false. Contentment is not a feeling that arrives when external conditions are perfect. It's a skill you develop regardless of conditions. Marcus Aurelius practiced contentment in the middle of war, plague, and political chaos. He didn't wait for peace to feel peaceful. He cultivated peace internally while chaos raged externally. He wrote, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it. And it is in your power to wipe out this judgment now." Contentment is the decision to be satisfied with what is while still working toward what could be. It's not resignation, it's not apathy. It's the ability to hold two truths simultaneously. I am enough as I am, and I can grow. I have enough now, and I can build more. I'm grateful for this moment, and I'm working toward the next. Most people can't hold that paradox. They think contentment means giving up ambition. It doesn't. It means divorcing ambition from anxiety. You work not because you need the outcome to be happy. You work because the work itself is meaningful. You build not because you're incomplete without it. You build because creation is part of your nature. You grow not because you're inadequate now. You grow because growth is what living things do. This is the shift. From desperate striving to peaceful building. From anxious chasing to grounded creating. And that shift makes you more effective, not less. Because you're no longer acting from scarcity, you're acting from abundance. Step 6. Embrace impermanence instead of fighting it. This is where most people create their own suffering. They chase permanence in an impermanent world. They want the relationship to never change, the success to never fade, the feeling to never end. And because nothing lasts, they live in constant fear of loss. Marcus Aurelius meditated on impermanence constantly. All things fade and quickly become myth. Time is a river, the resistless flow of all created things. One generation passes away, and another generation comes. He embraced impermanence not as tragedy, but as truth. And that embrace freed him from the desperate grasping that makes people miserable. When you accept that nothing lasts, you stop demanding that it should. You stop trying to freeze moments. You stop clinging to relationships, achievements, or feelings that are naturally evolving. Instead, you appreciate them fully precisely because they're temporary. The meal is delicious because you know it will end. The conversation is precious because you know you'll part. The moment is beautiful because you know it's fleeting. This is the deepest form of embracing. Not embracing the illusion of permanence, embracing the reality of change. And when you do that, you stop chasing the next thing because you're too busy being fully present with this thing. The paradox is that by accepting impermanence, you experience each moment more deeply than if you were trying to make it last forever. You taste the sweetness without the bitterness of trying to hold on. Step 7. Define enough for yourself. Here's the question that ends the chase. What is enough? Not what does society say is enough. Not what would impress others. What is actually enough for you? Marcus Aurelius was emperor. He could have indulged in unlimited excess. Instead, he lived simply. He defined enough and stopped there. He wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." Most people never define enough. They adopt society's endless standards. More followers, more money, more success, more everything. Because they never set their own finish line, they run forever. You set the finish line. You ask, How much money is actually enough for the life I want? How much recognition is actually enough for me to feel valued? How much achievement is actually enough to feel fulfilled? And then you pursue that specific amount, not $1 more, not one achievement beyond. This isn't lack of ambition, it's precision. You're aiming at a target instead of running aimlessly. And here's what happens. When you hit your enough, you stop. You've won the game. Now you can play a different game. Not accumulation, contribution, not achievement, meaning, not more, better. This is how you escape the hedonic treadmill, not by jumping off, by setting the speed to a sustainable pace and enjoying the scenery instead of desperately trying to run faster. Step 8. Practice the discipline of gratitude. This is the final tool. Gratitude is not a feeling, it's a practice, a daily, deliberate discipline. Marcus Aurelius began each day with gratitude, not for what he hoped to achieve, for what already existed. He wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." He didn't wait to feel grateful. He practiced gratitude until it became his default state. You do the same. Every morning, before you start chasing, you list what you already have. Not generic things, specific things. Not "I'm grateful for my health," but "I'm grateful my legs work and carried me out of bed this morning." Not "I'm grateful for my family," but "I'm grateful for the sound of my child's laugh yesterday." Not "I'm grateful to be alive," but "I'm grateful for the taste of coffee, the warmth of sunlight, the texture of this fabric on my skin." This specificity matters. It roots you in the present. It shifts your attention from what's missing to what's here. And over time, this practice rewires your brain. You stop being the person who notices what they lack. You become the person who notices what they have. And that person doesn't need to chase. That person is already home. Now understand this. Stopping the chase doesn't mean stopping growth. It means changing why you grow. Most people grow because they feel inadequate. They improve because they believe they're not enough as they are. That motivation works, but it's poisonous. It guarantees that no matter how much you achieve, you'll still feel inadequate. Because the root belief never changes. Marcus Aurelius grew differently. He improved not because he was inadequate, but because growth was his nature. Like a tree that grows not because it's insufficient as a sapling, but because growing is what trees do. He wrote, "Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good." He didn't postpone goodness until he achieved enough. He practiced goodness now because that's what aligned with his nature. You adopt the same orientation. You don't improve to finally be enough. You improve because you already are enough. And from that place of enoughness, growth becomes play rather than work. Creation rather than compensation. Expression rather than proof. You've been given the antidote to the chase. Not laziness. Not settling. Liberation. You learn that desire is infinite but satisfaction is not, and conscious choice replaces unconscious hunger. You learn the dichotomy of control, focusing only on what's actually yours to command. You learn to shift from having to being, from external accumulation to internal cultivation. You learned negative visualization, appreciating what you have by imagining its absence. You learned that contentment is a practice, not a destination waiting in the future. You learned to embrace impermanence instead of desperately fighting change. You learned to define enough for yourself, setting your own finish line. And you learned the discipline of gratitude, the daily practice that transforms perspective. This is Marcus Aurelius's path. Not from poverty to wealth, from anxiety to peace. Not from having nothing to having everything. From chasing everything to embracing what is. He ruled an empire and chose simplicity. He had absolute power and chose humility. He could have indulged every desire and chose discipline, not because he was superhuman, because he understood that the life worth living doesn't exist at the end of the chase. It exists right here, right now, in this breath, this moment, This ordinary, extraordinary, irreplaceable present. The question is not whether you can stop chasing. The question is whether you're willing to, because stopping means confronting the possibility that you already have what you need, that you already are who you need to be, that the life you've been running toward is the life you're already living. And for most people, that possibility is terrifying, because if it's true, it means all that chasing was unnecessary, all that anxiety was optional, all that postponement of contentment was a choice. But if you have the courage to stop, to look around, to embrace what is instead of what could be, you'll discover what Marcus Aurelius discovered 2,000 years ago. Happiness was never at the end of the road. It was walking beside you the entire time, waiting for you to stop running long enough to notice. So no, this wasn't about giving up ambition or accepting mediocrity. This was about understanding that you can build an empire or conquer nations or achieve everything society values and still be miserable. Or you can embrace this moment, this life, this breath, and find something that no achievement can provide. Peace. Like this video if you're exhausted from chasing. Subscribe if you're ready to embrace what already is. Because this isn't self-help. This is remembering that you never needed to chase anything. You just needed to come home.